Hey everyone, for today's video, we're going to be talking about the red-green law deck versus the mono-blue crocodile deck. For this, the law deck is going to want to try to get as many cards out on the field as possible, so that way we can get our heavy hitters out sooner than later. And for the mono-blue crocodile deck, they're going to want to bounce as many of our cards back to our hand. Let's watch the gameplay. Our opponent's going to start with this early play of SENTOMARU, which allows them to get pacifistas out of their deck and potentially see what may or may not be in their life zone when they search for the cards. Next up, our opponent swings for a 5,000 attack, and unfortunately, we only have a 2,000 counter. For our turn, we get our 2 Dawn, and with this, we're going to play our 2-cost SANJI. With this, we can use SANJI to bring 1 life from our life zone into our hand, and then attach 2 rested Dawn to SANJI, and then as well give an additional 2,000 power. Then we're just going to swing leader to leader at our opponent, and they're going to take the damage. For our opponent's next turn, they're going to attach some Dawn to SENTOMARU, and they're going to search for a Pacifista. Pacifista they're specifically looking for is the Pacifista with blocker. This way they get to start building up their defenses on their side of the field. Next, our opponent's going to attack for 6,000, and then we're going to take the damage. And then from there, our opponent's going to attack for 5,000 again, and unfortunately, the card we drew in our life was another 2,000 counter, which we'll have to use. For my next turn, I need to decide whether or not I wanted to play any 1-drops or any cards that can help bring Law's ability to full power, or whether or not I wanted to play it a little more aggressive. And I decided to go with a little bit of a more aggressive play and play the 5-drop Luffy that has Rush, and if he attached to Dawn, can bypass any blockers. With Rush, our Luffy is going to attack our opponent's leader for 6,000, but our opponent is going to play a Overheat from their hand, giving their leader plus 4,000, and bouncing SANJI back to our hand. We're going to attack with Law for 5,000 at the leader again. This time, our opponent is going to block with their Pacifista, and it's going to KO the Pacifista. For a little bit of safety for this turn, I decided to throw up a chopper, so that way if our opponent decides to put more Pacifistas down, we have something at least on the field. Our opponent decides to search for another Pacifista, same one this time as last time. This one is going to be the blocker. After this, our opponent's going to use some of their unused Dawn to boost up their leader. Our opponent with the buffed up leader decides to attack our character Luffy. This way, try to get some of our extra damage off the field. He goes in for an additional attack, and I decide to block with Chopper this time. For our next turn, I decide to get rid of SENTOMARU. We're going to have to try to do our best to get it off the field. So I'm going to attach 2 Dawn to Luffy, bringing him up to 8,000, and our opponent cannot activate blockers. So I swing for 8,000 against SENTOMARU. I then decide I need to start getting some damage on my opponent, so I attach 2 Dawn to my leader, and then swing in for attack against their leader, and my opponent decides to take the damage. For my opponent's next turn, they're going to play a Bartholomew KUMA from their hand, which allows them to play a Pacifista if they have it in hand on play, and they play another Pacifista with blocker, which is going to be a problem once again. Our opponent decides to fill up the board. They play a 4-cost Dracul MIHAWK as well. This is the card that when you attach a Dawn, you can swing for an attack, and you draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. My opponent then attacks my leader, and I unfortunately have to take the damage. So at this point, I start to realize that my opponent's got a full board, and I need to decide kind of what I should be doing here. And I make a decision to attack with my character Luffy, and from here, I don't believe I have enough Dawn to do what I'd like to do, but I'm going to try it out anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing with character Luffy at my leader, hopefully getting my opponent to then block with one of the Pacifistas. But unfortunately, what my opponent is going to do is they're going to activate an event card from their hand. My opponent then activates Desert SPADA, which gives their leader plus 2,000 and then allows them to look at the top 3 cards and rearrange them in any order. So this negates the attack my character Luffy did against their leader and does not successfully get one of their blockers off the field, which could leave an attacker open for my opponent's next turn. I decided at this point this probably isn't going so well, so we need to do something real quick. So I'm going to play Law, which allows me to return my Luffy to my hand, and then play CAPONE BEGE. So I now have 2 blockers on the field to do something against my opponent for next turn when they decide to attack. So So over the next couple seconds here, I need to weigh my options. I need to decide whether or not I'm going to start playing passive or whether or not I'm going to be real aggressive here. And what it all comes down to here is we're probably going to be ending in a couple turns. My opponent has much more life than I do. So I decide, you know what, I need to be aggressive, maybe get some life down, or maybe get some cards out of my opponent's hand. They have all their Dawn rested, so I decide I'm going to rest my 5 Dawn, and I'm going to play my 5-cost Luffy again and swing and hopefully get either a life or a blocker out. So my opponent decides to take some cards out of their hand to counter it, and then I swing with my leader against their leader, and they take a damage. This is where my opponent really sets things into motion, and they play their 9-cost MIHAWK, bouncing my Law to the bottom of my deck. And then from there, they're going to decide how they want to approach things. So they're going to attack with their leader against my leader, and I'm going to counter. From there, they decide to start attacking right away with their vanilla attackers, and then just start really hammering things out, taking a lot of my counters right out of my hand. Very strong turn from my opponent last round, bringing me down to my last hit, making me decide what I need to do this turn in order to turn things around, or make sure that I'm able to turn the tides and bring myself into another round at least. Don't have a whole lot of options in my hand at this time, but we're going to do our best to see if we can survive to the next round. So we're going to swing in with Luffy right away, so see if we can get an extra damage off on the leader, taking him down to 1, and our opponent's going to take it. So this is where I make the biggest mistake of the game. I decide to play 5-cost character Law, and I bounce Luffy back to my hand. Then I play the 3-cost character Killer, KOing one of my opponent's characters. And then I realize I only have 4 Dawn left. I cannot play Rush Luffy right now. So I cannot take my opponent out this turn, unfortunately, because I do not have enough Dawn to play any of my Rush characters. I don't have ZORO 3-cost with Rush in my hand. And unfortunately, I don't think I have any blockers at this point in time. So I'm just going to swing against my opponent's MIHAWK that is rested, try to get as many characters off the field, and see if I can survive this next round. So I do have a blocker on the field. Let's see what happens. So first, our opponent's going to attack, and I have to block it, unfortunately. Does not kill our character Law because the attack is less than our attack. I do have to play a counter card boosting up our character, but then our opponent swings in with a very heavy Dracule MIHAWK, and that KOs me for game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.